Kevin, we're going to turn to our job summit now with our panelist, economist David Malpass. He's the president of Encima Global, and he's also a columnist for Forbes. You're not a communist.
No.
Because they're floating around now. Joe Lane, he is the principal for Sinter Partners, a private investment firm. Recently served as the CEO of GE Technology Finance. Sorry for the time you spent at GE. And he's also the former president of IBM Credit Corporation. Mark Mix is here. He's the president of National Right to Work. Okay, guys, I don't even know where we start. Let me start with this. Kevin just said the only thing the government can do is cut taxes. I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of things they can do. As a small business owner myself, create the atmosphere to where I know you're not going to change all the rules on me in the coming year. Am I wrong?
No, that's right. The uncertainty is killing businesses. One expectation is that tax rates will go up. So it's not just tax cuts that are needed. We have to have some certainty or some assurance that they're not always going to go up, and Washington's not giving any assurance along those lines.
Can you do me a favor here? Let's just go over. Let me just add a couple of. Oh, there's Jeff Jones. I love him. Let's just make a quick list of all the things that if you're a small business, if you want to hire people. Because I'd like to hire people. I could hire people. I can't now because I'm afraid they're going to do health care on me. They're going to do cap and trade. So my energy costs go up. What else?
Big tax hike.
Taxes are going to go up. What else?
Card check forced unionism.
Unions. What else?
Uncap the FICA withholding.
Do you know what that will do? Explain that. Explain that.
At some point, companies have no way today to predict what does a new employee cost me, because for all the reasons you're putting that list together, Glenn, an employer can't sit down and say this incremental employee is going to cost me X, and therefore I can do the typical business balance to say if I get this kind of a return on this kind of an investment, it makes sense. If you don't know what the investment is, you can't make the investment.
Okay, there's 5 things right now they could do. Anything else?
There is one, credit. So credit's been very tight for small businesses because it's getting channeled to the government and to big businesses. So one of the problems facing small businesses and businesses that can't even get started is they go to the bank says, nope, we've really stopped lending this year.
It is, you don't even have, I mean, you do have to cut taxes, but if you froze everything, if you just said, we're not going to, I keep thinking that we need the Hippocratic oath for politicians. First, do no harm. Is it just me that I look as a business person? I look at what Washington is doing, and if they just weren't all lawyers and teachers and have never been out in the public sector, I would think they're intentionally trying to destroy us.
The uncertainty is the bane of creativity. What every business person's approach is tell me the rules and get out of the way.
We flipped the Hippocratic oath. Remember, the Constitution said the powers that aren't designated here are reserved to the people and the states. Washington's taken that on the other side and said, we get all the power, and our job is to do as much as possible, even if it causes harm. That gets more jobs, more power in Washington. So it's flipped.
And that's right, Glenn. From a union perspective, from Andy Stern's perspective, the AFL-CIO membership has finally crossed the Rubicon. Over 50% of all union members in America are, guess what, government workers. So there's an incentive for them to grow government now. And certainly some of the things on this list, we look at number 8, to find out how serious they are about creating jobs and how serious this debate is. Number 8 on that list says, in order to create jobs, we've got to strip workers of their right to vote by secret ballot as to whether or not they're going to be in a union. Then we've got to allow the government to implement private sector contracts by government decree after 90 days of negotiation. How does that create a single job?
This is SEIU's. Who's up on this whole 9-point plan? You are?
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
So let's just go over this. This is what they actually said. You know what? We got a plan, 9-point plan, create jobs. Let's go over this one by one. Increasing unemployment, that just is the condition that we're under, right?
They want to extend the unemployment benefits.
Oh, okay, benefits.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's not a good...
That's not an incentive to create
jobs. That sounds
jobs.
like a compassionate thing, but sometimes compassion is not a good thing. Can you Do you understand what I mean?
Well, Joe and I talked about this, and the idea that you know, they're going to extend unemployment benefits. There's a lot of trouble out there, and we want to be receptive and sensitive to that. But the idea of borrowing more money, where does that money come from? It comes from small business people at the state that are paying that or that unemployment insurance compensation, and it just raises the cost on small businesses.
The general perception of the public is this is government largesse. They're being nice to us, and somehow the money finds its way out of some magic coffers in Washington. And the people who don't understand that an extension of the unemployment benefits means they go back to those former employers and say, need some more. That's where it comes from.
There's more. The longer you're out of a job, your skills go down. And so as you extend the unemployment benefits, what the data is showing is that people are going longer and longer without a job. They get stagnant in terms of their skills.
Well, then that's when we can probably create some new teaching opportunities to retrain people. So we've created new jobs. Yeah. Using TARP funds to increase credit for small business, this is just insane.
Glenn, you know, that money was supposedly to save us from the brink of the abyss, and now somehow they're going to use it for this grandiose program. It's just spending and more debt, and doesn't make any sense.
It's a shell game.
Giving taxpayer money to states and local governments. I'm so tired of this. I mean, look, if I live in a responsible state, if I live in Texas, how dare you ask me to pay for the if I believed that California is the place, California doesn't have any humidity. I love California. I'd love to live out in the sunshine and everything else, but I can't live and do a business out there because they're out of control. Why should I, if I'm living in Texas with the humidity and the bugs about the size of a golf bag, how come I have to go and pay for their lifestyle? It's not right.
That's exactly right. And what that is designed to do, or what they're thinking it's designed to do, is to save 900,000 public sector jobs in states where union monopoly power has made it virtually impossible to get rid of any employee that can't cut the job. Just in Washington, D.C., where I came from today, 30 metro workers were caught violating a zero policy on use of cell phones while they're out there doing their job. The union negotiated some benefits, got it back. I mean, Vallejo, California filed bankruptcy. What they said was they couldn't change the contract which they negotiated with the public employees unions, and so therefore they had no other choice to file Chapter 9 bankruptcy. Detroit public school system. We're going to see more of this, Glenn, and the solution there is not to bail out the states, it's to control union monopoly power.
Let me go to Charles Payne, who is with us as well. Charles, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Charles, let me ask you this question. If I'm giving federal taxpayer dollar to states and local governments, especially when it comes to let's say we bail out California, wouldn't that be taxation without representation? I mean, why are we giving? I didn't have anything to do with the decisions in California.
Yeah, I mean, that means that maybe you take a responsible state like the citizens in North Dakota and you're punishing them for being successful. We're taking money from them and redirecting it. And you know, it's going to be these states, ironically enough, it seems like almost every one of these states are states that Obama won, or these cities that Obama won, the Detroits of the world, that somehow are going to need our money, the people who are, you know, everyone is in this together except when it's time to dispense money, and that's when it all gets all crazy. And you made a fantastic point about individual state responsibilities and this slippery slope that this creates.
Okay. We're going to come back with our panelists here, and also we're going to be taking calls. I don't think have we ever done this on the program? I don't think we've ever taken phone calls before. We're going to do it tonight. Come on, it's been a long week. I'm sleepy. I mean, can you carry your load for one show? Call 1-888-TEL-FOX, 1-888-TEL-FOX, and we'll try to take a couple of calls. Also, according to the American Small Business League, look at how much money has been lost by small businesses. That's coming up.
Glenn Beck is brought to you by Goldline Internet.
Well, good news is at the Job Summit, you know, they had a push for green jobs, which one of the guests on tonight's program thinks the green job thing is kind of like communism, and it makes sense if you think about it. We'll explain it in a second. You know, our former green job czar was, after all, an avowed communist. By the way, a while back I mentioned that Van Jones was a convicted felon. I think I said that, what did I say that, about 4 months ago on one of the programs. I've said from the very beginning of this program that we will always correct the factual errors when somebody points them out or if we realize we've made them. Van Jones is not a convicted felon. He was arrested, he was jailed briefly, and then when he emerged, that is the story of jail here is really not about jail with Van Jones. It is the story that he said afterwards. That's where he became radicalized, where he began to embrace communism. Now let's go back to the panel.